OCO. OCO is hello in Cherokee. Can you tell me hello?
OCO.
Welcome. I am Grandmother Spirit Hawk. And your names are?
Phoenix, Ansley, and Tara Ann.
Welcome to my lodge. A lodge is where a Native American lives, whether it be a cabin, a house, a hogan. That's a lodge. What we're going to talk about today is who lived here on this land. And the Indians that lived here on this land, the Native Americans, were Cherokee. Right where we are, right here today, it was all Cherokee. And we're going to talk about it a long, long time ago, how they lived. And all these items you see on the table, we're going to go through them. And we're going to talk about them. So if you have any questions, you can ask me then, okay? Okay, the Cherokee back then, they couldn't go to stores. They couldn't go and buy clothes. They couldn't go to the grocery store. So they had to take everything from the land and produce everything for themselves. They grew crops just like we do today, beans and corn, and grew gourds. And they also had to harvest animals for their meat and clothing. So we're going to kind of talk about that. Okay. They could dig clay out of the earth and make bowls, right? Because they couldn't go buy forks and spoons and cups. They had to make everything. Other vessels were made from gourds. We'd grow gourds, just like corn and beans. And gourds come in different shapes. This one could be cut here, and the seeds scooped out and saved, and the vessel would be a bowl. So there's different sizes. Some gourds grow this big around. So this gourd is called a dipper gourd. It's cut, the seeds scooped out, and you could drink water with it or dip soup. So everything had to come from the earth. Other things, this is river cane. So there's a lot of things that for play, we couldn't just work all the time. So for the children, we could harvest the corn, and the corn shucks could be dyed with blueberries. Little dolls made. This is a locust bean. It drops off a locust bean tree. I believe we have one here on this property still today. And when it drops, the seeds dry out. Put a little bit of deer hide on it, and you have a nice instrument. Let's see. Clay. There's a clay pipe. That's made just like this. Clay's dug out of the earth, and you have a little pipe. Now the Native Americans are very religious. Everything is sacred. The sun and the moon and the stars and the plants, everything's very sacred. And they had different rituals. One ritual was sage. Sage is just a plant that grows just like corn and beans. It's just a plant, but it brings in good energies when it's burned. You light this, and the smoke comes up, and the smoke travels up. We use a turkey feather. We smudge ourselves to take away bad energies. We smudge others, or we can smudge our lodge. So that's one of the religious ceremonies. And you know the little dream catcher? These, we still have these today. The mothers would put them over the child's bed. The bad dreams would get caught in the web, and the good dreams would come in and swirl around down into the child and give them good dreams. So it was a lot of fun little rituals too. Well, here's a little birch bark. This is bark off of a tree. And then these are just tree limbs cut where you'd have another toy. Now we dug way back then. We didn't have beads and things like that, but we did have copper we could dig and make ornaments for our clothing or jewelry. Copper jewelry. Now the beads came when the Europeans came and brought the trade beads to give to the Indians to make friends with them, and that's how the beads came. And when the beads came, the Native Americans started beading and making beautiful patterns with the beads. But we're talking about before all that came. This is bone, teeth and bones, and that's what the jewelry was made out of back then. Or even, you know what that's made out of? The belly of a turtle. And that would have been a nice hairpiece. Okay, we made reed baskets. This is reeds. You go down by where it's moist and long, tall grasses grow, and you can make baskets like this out of reeds, or you can make baskets like this from vines that you just find out in the woods. Here's a vine basket, and you know what this basket was for? Yeah, baby. That's made out of the tall grasses. So everything had to be made. Okay, we also had to harvest animals, and you might think that's a bad thing, but you had to have meat, and every time an animal's life was taken, you blessed that animal. You said, thank you for clothing my family and feeding my family. And you only took what you needed. You didn't kill a lot of animals and leave them there to waste. You killed what you had to have, and you blessed it. You used every part of that animal, like we said before. Jewelry, tools, the ligaments in the legs were used for bow strings, the tools, everything on that animal was used. The clothing, you see this is all deer hide. You tan the hides, and you take the hair off of both sides, and you have this soft leather to make clothing out of, and bags out of. Look at this bag. This is all deer hide. Here, see that? Decorated, and look on the front. We used the wolf, and then the belly of the bag is a turtle. So every part of the animal. That would have been a good turtle stew. And they would use the whole coat of the wolf and left the hair on like this for warmth, for gloves and hats and blankets. So if you leave the fur on one side, it keeps things very warm. And the deer hide, you make bags. You tan it different ways like this, and it makes it waterproof. And this, you make soft bags.
How long would it take for deer hides to tan?
You have to use a tanning process. It's called tanning because it's tannin, and you use, every animal had enough brain to tan its own hide. So like I said, every part is used, and it's just a process of washing it and letting it sit in that. Now the trees have tannin in them too, so you have bark tanning and you have brain tanning, two different kinds. So it's just a process. Okay, we had to have tools, didn't we? We had to have tools to shape baskets and clear the bark off of it. So tools would be tools like this. Don't be scared of things like this. We had to have these. This is our tools. For a big job, to cut a huge limb, we'd have to have a bigger tool like this with a bigger blade where we could scrape it down. And we used like every part that's a deer bone leg. See that? That is also. And the sheaths, knives always had to have sheaths where they wouldn't cut you. You could stick them on your clothing or wear them around your neck, and the sheath protected, and the sheaths are made out of deer hide also. Now bows and arrows, we had to have bows and arrows to shoot long distance. And this is a tree limb, it's hickory, and this would have been sinew from the leg bone of the animals. And a lance. This is a lance. We could fish with this. We could go to the river and throw down and get fish with that. So that was another tool. With the bows, we had to have arrows and quivers. This is made out of deer hide. This is made out of the reeds. The arrows were made from river cane and turkey feathers. There's different fletching. At first we had arrowheads that were knapped, and then we had metal points. But like I said, everything is from the earth. Everything's from the forest. And at first, we also had tomahawks, and this is just a stone that's knapped just like an arrowhead, put in a tree limb, covered with rawhide.
So did they have to carve like the rock?
They knapped.
How long did that take?
Knapping. It's according to how big it is and how sharp you want it. Not very long. Now, also, we have deer here. All these animals here you see are still here today, as it was hundreds of years ago. That's deer antler. This is a small black bear skull. This is a large black bear skull. This was actually found over on Lake Kiwi. Now the other animals we used, you know what these are?
Squirrels?
They come in many different colors. This is rabbit fur. Yeah. And rabbits, this would have been warm blankets, it would have been warm hats, and wonderful rabbit stew, too.
I think they use those for babies since they're so
Oh,
small.
yeah, for the babies, they had to keep the babies warm. We have these here. You know what this is?
Bobcat.
Bobcat, yeah. They're a little bigger than a domestic cat. These are?
Foxes.
That's coyote. You see these running around here still, too. Okay.
I know the name, but
That's a mink.
I thought it was a
Look, you could actually put him around your neck, keep your neck warm. Yeah. This little guy here. It's a muskrat. The fur, all these fur is all used, and then the meat is used too. Okay, now the beaver. I want you to feel this. Feel how soft that is. When Europeans came, they almost made the beaver extinct because they loved this fur and they wanted hats and coats made out of it. And a beaver hide, this is how it looks. See the back of it? That's how it looks when it's tanned. It has to be put on a hoop and stretched tight. But if you take that top hair off, it's soft like this. All right. And now, look at this. This is a full-grown mountain lion. Mountain lion, panthers, and cougars are the same animal, and we have these here, still today, roaming. And they're not ferocious. They just live here just like we do. Let's tell.
what would they use for the bobcat skin?
Warmth, blankets, and furs. Yeah. So, you have any questions? Any more?
For the fishing, did they just have to wait patiently, or did they have a technique that they could do to catch the fish?
Oh, they would wait and they'd see a fish, and with the lance, it would be easy because they could just spear it real quick.
With
when they saw one.
Water, did they like steam the water first, or did they just drink it like right out of
Water
the
was
freezer?
much purer, yes, then. And you cook it over a fire, yes, and soup to make different soups and all out of it, but they didn't worry about that then. Yeah.
So what was used to keep all their food cold if they didn't eat it right
Pretty
that
much
night?
eat it right away.
Okay.
Yes, you would eat it, and they would dry food mostly. If they wanted to, they would dry it and salt it and put it, and that way they could put it in their bags and take it with them on trips or keep it for the winter. Yeah.
They put some in the river, to keep it nice and cool.
Right. And they could store apples and potatoes, and just like we do now, and cool under the ground, dig a hole in the ground where it's cooler, and keep things
Now,
like
would
that.
they use like the deer hides to make their teepees?
Oh, that's another thing. Cherokee and any of the Native Americans that lived in this area, there were no teepees. That's all out west, because they had teepees because they had to fold them up and be able to follow the buffalo, because all the Indians that had teepees followed buffalo. Here, they lived in villages just like we do here. And they had cabins and longhouses, and they grew corn and beans, and they stayed in one place, and they had families all around them to help each other. Yeah.
Good.
I'm Grandmother Spirit Hall. What is your name?
Phoenix. Tara Ann.
Ainsley.
What we're going to talk about today is Native American silversmithing and metalsmithing. And the tools, we have to have a lot of tools for this trade. And I'm going to show you some of the tools first, and then we're going to talk about designing and actually hammer a piece or two, okay? Now all the tools, we have lots of different files. You see these different shapes. Once you have a piece, you have to cut it and smooth it, because this is all metal. You have copper, and you have silver and bronze. These are the metals we start out with. And they're flat. When they're taken out of the ground, they come out in lumps like this, and they're melted down, and then they're hammered flat where we can use them. So that's how you get the copper and the silver ready to use. That's a piece flattened. We make bowls and vessels out of it. Copper bracelets. You see the little designs in this?
Did they carve those?
You see these tools here? All of these little stamps. These are called stamps. And every one of them has a different design on the end. And that's how you get all these little designs in the metal. See this? So that's how that's. There's different. Now this is beading. Silversmithing and metalsmithing isn't beading, but this goes along with it because if you have a nice piece that you make, then you want to bead it where you can wear it, right? So that kind of goes along with it. But you see all this flat part here? That's silver. That is how this starts out. It's just a flat piece. And then each piece, you take another piece and twist the wire. That has to be put on there. And then you take this piece to hold the stone in. And to get that to stick, you see how it's on there, it's stuck. It's not glued on there. That's setting a stone. What you have to do is use a torch. You can use a torch like this. You get it real hot. And you put it on the metal. And right before the melting point, it grabs each other. You have to be very, very careful when you get to that point. But that's with a torch, hot torch, and flux. That's how you get all these little pieces to stay on there. You see those little balls there? Those are all separate little balls. Everything's put on separate. See this little guy here? That's just a shape cut out. And all that is called soldering. And that's all soldered together. And then the copper's laid on top after you cut it out. And you have to cut out all these little pieces separate. And you use this to do that. You have to put that here. And cut out your design. But first, when you make a design, let's say you want to make a turtle. You draw it first and make a pattern. That way you can use him over and over if you like it. You use the same one. You lay it on your metal, just like you're cutting fabric, right? And you put it on the edge and you trace around it. And then you take your saw and you actually saw it out.
Now, how did they like draw it out if they wanted to make certain
You can take a little
designs?
scratch tool. Yeah, a little sharp tool and just scratch around it. A little sharp tool, yeah.
So with all the details that they put into this metalsmithing, how long would it take?
Well, it's according to how intricate the piece is, actually. You see this piece here? That would have taken a lot longer because each piece is separate and each one of these little pieces has to be hand cut and handmade. And all this has to be put on there and all this has to be soldered on. And then the last step is putting the stone in. So it takes a long time to make a piece. But something like this would take a lot less time than this, of course. But let's see. You see this piece here? That's the flat stock again I just showed you. And when you have a nice stone, you put the little stamps to make the designs.
Where would they find the colorful stones at?
That comes, this type of metalsmithing is actually more Navajo. It's the Native Americans from out west. The Cherokee used teeth and made wooden beads. There's some more teeth. And they made bone beads. And most of the Cherokee jewelry was made like this. Now the silversmithing and metalsmithing is more out west, okay? And I love that type of jewelry, so I incorporate all of it together. But Cherokee didn't have all the silver and the turquoise stones and all.
Could
they
they
were
ever-
more natural people.
Could they ever get like the silver if they wanted it?
Yeah, now you can, yes. They got it. But at first they just used the bones and claws and all that. Okay, I'm going to let you lean over here and let you hammer a little bit. I want you to feel this. It's a pretty heavy hammer, okay? And you can pick you a stamp here and sit it on this piece. Hold it tight. You see how it makes the designs? So that would be exactly the same way I did this. Would you like to try it?
Sure.
Okay. Now all these have different designs on them. You can just pick one out.
Do I put it this way or this way?
use the big end. Yeah. Let's get you a bigger piece. That'll work. We can get a new piece here and start. Hit it pretty hard 2 times. Okay, let's look at it. There it is. See? And you just move it around in different spots, and you can try different ones. Hit it hard. Okay, hit it hard about 3 times. Perfect. Now this also, here's other tools here. You see this? This is actually a drill. When you want to put a hole in something, you can actually put the metal here.
So did they have those back then?
No, they would just pierce it with a sharp object. Yeah, this came along a little later, but you just hold that and turn this, and it turns this part here and drills a hole in it. That's just an old way to do it.
Did this come a little later, or did...
Yeah, this is later. This is how we do it now. Yeah, but then it's still... Okay, come over here. Get it started and bear down on here. And just hold down. Every time, there you go, look at that. And if we had a design drawn in here, you would actually turn the metal, cut out a turtle design or whatever you like to cut. That's wonderful. You're doing real good. See this right here? This I have actually drawn out. It's going to be a pair of earrings. Then I drew the design on here, and I'll cut this sterling silver out and put the setting around it, and those will be earrings.
So did you make most of these?
Mm-hmm. See this? This is all the parts and pieces that you would put to make this piece right here.
Oh, that's pretty.
That's the flat piece. There's the stone, and this is all the different little parts and pieces you need just to make that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it take you a really long time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's worth it. It's fun to do. Questions?
How long have you been doing this?
Oh, I've been doing this for about 20 years. Yeah. It's been rewarding, and a lot of people come to me with custom work, and I teach classes to teach girls like you how to do this. And we start from the beginning and end up with a whole nice piece made from start to finish.